Welcome everybody, it's Connor Blake here from Bank BI. Thank you very much indeed for joining. Just giving you a 2-minute warning. We're going to be starting in about approximately 2 minutes, just while the other people get themselves registered. Do feel free to submit any questions or comments via chat, particularly if you're having any difficulty hearing us on the audio. Thanks very much, and we'll be starting in 2 minutes. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We're now going to be starting the webinar. So, as I say, if you do have any issues with hearing us, then please do let us know through the chat box. And just to reintroduce myself, my name is Connor Blake. I'll be your host for today's session alongside our Bank BI CEO, Graham Goble. So just a couple of housekeeping thoughts as we start the webinar. Feel free to submit your questions via the control panel. So there'll be a chat box or the question button there, and then we can pick those up towards the end. As we go towards the end of the webinar, I'll be asking you some 3 simple questions with some multiple choice answers. Those will just be presented to you on the screen, and you can just click on your answer, and then we'll move on through those quite quickly. And finally, there's going to be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So we'll be able to pick up on the questions that you submit during the session, and any questions that we don't get to during the session, then we're going to be able to give you a written response. Everybody who's registered for the webinar would also get a recording of the webinar and the supporting information alongside. So with that, I'd just like to open up the webinar, and we'll move forwards to get into the matter. So I've summarised here what we find to be the principal causes of regulatory reporting issues for banks. Principally, we're finding that deadlines are getting tighter, and some central banks are even specifying the exact day reports have got to be delivered on, and that can be regardless of whether it's actually a working day or not. So there is some real prescription starting to come in on reporting timelines from the central banks that we see out in the market. Or alternatively, just the manual processes that a lot of the banks are dealing with are just incomprehensible. And for that reason, a lot of errors tend to creep in, especially when you're trying to manage multiple sources of data, which are not always well understood or simply just don't reconcile. And I think importantly, again, with the regulators, they're increasingly using fines to put pressure on financial institutions to streamline manual processes. The objective there is to enhance accuracy, availability, and transparency of that reporting. So it is tough to summarize on just one page all of the challenges that financial institutions are facing in getting this right, but just to say that we really do get how hard it can be, and we specifically developed Bank BI as a direct response to those challenges. So what are the pain points that we encounter in the banks and financial institutions that we serve? Well, we typically find that complex data sources and what is really a spaghetti mess of processes across different areas means that a lot of banks and financial institutions are effectively obliged to manually consolidate their data or manually compute the results. A lot of those adjustments are done in spreadsheets, so there's not really any coherent audit trail for that process either. And those workbooks are often held in different repositories, so that's typically SharePoint. Those get emailed around, and there's really gets to be a challenge around version control, and data consolidation is even more of a challenge. So to achieve this, we've taken direct data feeds from your core banking systems and the GL. Now, we're actually agnostic as to where the data resides or in which core banking system or which GL you're using. And we pull both of those data sets into our applications. So taking a look at the approach from Bank BI, the Bank BI strategies to resolving the problems that we just discussed is really to deliver pre-packaged banking and business intelligence software out of the box, so you can effectively move to a daily reporting cycle and really deliver on financial automation. So within Bank BI, what we're trying to do is to enable you to consolidate your data, compute all of your results, and handle any manual adjustments within the application. So by doing that, you get visibility and auditability that is currently so elusive in the existing situation. So as I mentioned before, we do take the data feeds from the core banking system and the GL, and we pull those data sets into our application. And when we by taking a snapshot of the GL financial data and the loan and deposit data, we can do three things. And that's firstly, we populate our web apps, and those run on any device and any browser. So you get the capability to look at the financial and loan portfolio as of last night, anytime and anywhere. Secondly, we automate the production of the management and financial reports, as well as the board pack. And then finally, and the subject of in more detail in this webinar, we also have the reconciliation tool to the regulator chart of account. So all calculations, rules and adjustments are also executed in Bank BI. So here I'm just going to give you a quick outline of the main features that Bank BI has developed to resolve these regulatory reporting challenges and get towards that automated daily process. So starting off with extracting the right data. So we know precisely what data we need. So we're not looking for the whole universe of possible data, just the data required for the reporting that you need. We've got clearly visible and audited business rules. So when the auditors and regulators ask you for visibility, you can quickly and importantly, confidently respond to them. And then Bank BI captures authorized manual adjustments. And again, this is really adding to the consistency, visibility and traceability of any adjustments. We'll also automatically calculate and push those results to the report formats that you need. So it makes those easy to consume in the format that you require. We'll provide a full audit trail for all of the returns, and that's all dates right the way down to the customer and GL account level if needed. So as a result of having your GL and core banking data in one place, Bank BI can reconcile your management chart of accounts to the central bank returns. So as I mentioned before, this creates confidence at the regulator that the numbers are correctly calculated. And we do all of this in what we consider to be a highly cost-effective, secure cloud environment. So we're finding that financial institutions in most markets are really, they're encouraging their executives to take advantage of cloud offerings and be able to innovate in their business areas. And that's no exception in the finance area and the regulatory reporting area. And finally, you're not on your own. So our support teams are on hand to help you manage the change to the system and just make sure that you're getting the most out of your solutions throughout the year. Now, we're going to start moving into more detail about the regulatory reporting data challenge. So this is a chance for me to just introduce Graham, and perhaps, Graham, if I could ask you to give us a few insights into what that data challenge is, please.
Yes, thank you, Connor. So what we thought we'd do here is take an example of a real regulatory return. So the one we've taken and selected here is a Bank of Zambia schedule. It's Schedule 2, which is loans and advances. And as you can see, it's a sort of matrix type analysis of loans and advances by certain criteria. So it's looking at sector and it's looking at customer type. So from the perspective of how we do what we do as Bank BI in terms of streamlining the regulatory reporting process, we're effectively doing a data analysis of the reporting requirements and tying those data elements back to the source data. So in this case here, we know the whole schedule is loans and advances. We probably get the definition of that from the general ledger accounting system. But to break down those loans and advances by sector and customer type, we would need to look into account level data. So as Connor said, what we can do within the Bank BI model is pull together different sources of data, in this case GL data, and then lower account level loan deposit data, and cross-reference those and reconcile those two sets of data so that we can seamlessly move from defining business rules in the general ledger terms, but then move into a subset of the data, in this case, subsetting loans by sector, by customer type, and possibly, excuse me, some currency derivation thereof. So as a result of that, what we're able to then do is basically treat every return as a data analysis exercise. We can see the source data of the report. And when we go through a scoping exercise of looking at all of the reports for a given central bank, the sum of that scoping is really what defines what can be automated, what can be processed by the system, and also what data elements we're going to need in the source data so we can validate those with the banks as we start looking at matching the source data to the process and to the end results.
That's great, Graham. Thanks very much indeed for that. So I think here just a chance for those for me to explain a little bit more about Bank BI for those of you who are not familiar with us. But we are, as a business, 100% focused on empowering finance to push information across the organisation. So as a business, we've got a simple mission, and that's to reduce the pressure on finance professionals by removing the manual work from your day. And we provide you access to information that can help you to work more effectively, and that's wherever and whenever you need it. We've been going for 5 years now, and I'm pleased to say that we're very much on track with our mission. So our software as a service model is now used and it's trusted by over 60 customers in 40 countries, which I believe is a testament to the value that we provide. Now, just giving you a quick insight into the applications and how we help. So the Bank BI applications are all about providing an out-of-the-box web-based analytics and reporting experience. So we aim to create that by covering 3 broad areas. So firstly, that's financial performance. So everything relating to the financials of your business. So that production of the balance sheet, income statement, and performance ratios. So really all the main elements that lead to producing and automating the board pack. And now for banking performance, as I mentioned before, we reach into your core banking systems and pull out a daily snapshot of all your loans and deposits. And we bring that together in a comprehensive loan and deposit analysis. And our regulatory reporting solution enables you to respond to regulatory changes quickly and cost effectively. Now we do that by automating manual tasks, and just in a moment we're going to move into the detail of exactly how we do that. But effectively we make the business transformation rules visible, and we also ensure that the reporting attributes are correctly mapped. So I think just stepping in to give you a flavour of what the applications actually look like. I'll start with financial performance, which is designed to make your daily financials available to you anytime and anywhere. So every morning, as soon as you log in, you're presented with the daily dashboards that you actually need, and they cover the balance sheet, income statement, and the key ratios you want to track. Now, these dashboards highlight key balance sheet positions and the values you want to track, but also the movements on a month-to-date basis, quarterly or annually. And we deliver a complete standard set of key ratios out of the box. And if there are any changes needed, those can be overridden, and also the order in which they appear can be configured. So the reports are configurable, and you can configure those to show the information that you're most interested in. So the financial performance application is really designed to allow you to quickly drill down into your financial results and then understand the underlying reasons for any improvements or changes. In this example, is a snapshot of performance ratios. And as I mentioned before, those ratios and values are configurable by the bank, credit union, or microfinance institution. Now here you're looking at a snapshot of what we call our KPI tree analysis. So this allows you to drill down directly from any of the dashboards or reports, and it's all the way down to the underlying business level. So it's a quick way to get a more granular view of what is driving the contributions to the headline figures in your key reports. And from the KPI tree analysis, you can also get quick access to all the other KPIs available in the system. So it's really simple to navigate. Now, Graham, I think it's an opportunity here with peer analysis, perhaps just to share a couple of your thoughts on that. So could I perhaps invite you to just comment on this slide?
Yeah, thanks, Connor. So when we're talking about peer analysis, I think you need to think about really consolidation of financial data. And one example that we're showing here is peer analysis. So as an application, Bank BI can be used by financial institutions to not just report in country, but also consolidate up either within the group or even within an industry. So one of the examples here is that we're taking all of the industry data for the credit union market in the United States, and we have a peer analysis comparison within our performance solution. So looking at the columns here, I'm comparing, in this case, my credit union to all other credit unions or a peer group that I can define within that. The use case of this is not just industry analysis in countries like the United States or credit unions, but also in other instances where, for example, as I say, banks might want to consolidate data across regions. So we have customers that use Bank BI both in country. One particular customer uses us in around 11 countries across Africa, but then they consolidate up at a group level their Asian, African, and Central American business lines. And so they're able to provide consolidated financial and global loan and deposit portfolio at a group level, but they're also can report at a local level as well. This is also applicable in country and could be applicable to central banks that might want to consolidate data for a particular country to again look at a consolidation of the banking market within that country. So this is a new feature that we've added recently. It's been deployed to several of our customers, and we're just about to launch this peer analysis for our credit union customers in the United States.
That's great, Graham. Thanks very much indeed for that. So I think finally, in terms of our applications, just moving into the banking performance. So everything that I've shown to date on financial performance is effectively based on GL balances coming from the source GL system. What we're also able to do, as I mentioned before, is to bring in a feed of loan and deposit data from the core banking system. So we generically call that banking performance, and it covers all of the loan and deposit dashboards. So, for example, you might want to access performance on the performance of your non-performing loan trends. So, using this report, you can identify how a branch or region, or in fact a specific group of products, contribute to the non-performing loans. Now, all of the reports have filters and parameters to help you focus your analysis on specific products or branches, or you can choose multiple measures of non-performing loans, such as, for example, a range of past due bands. So when you need to carry out a detailed product performance analysis, you can also quickly compare performance of different regions and branches or loan officers. You might want to focus your analysis on a specific business line, so for example, mortgages, credit cards, or any other specific product. So in this example, we're just having a look at the ranking of product performance by product group. So similarly to the branch scorecards, the loan officer scorecard reports will allow managers to see at a glance which officers are performing well or badly against their peers or the targets set by management. So this lets you easily check to see if trends are generalized or isolated to a specific branch or business unit. And then you can look at those on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. So that's just a quick snapshot just to give you a flavor of what the financial performance and banking performance applications look like. I think now, to get to the meat of the webinar, I'd like to invite Graham to step in again and give you a more detailed overview of what our regulatory reporting solution can do for you.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. So as Connor said, we're all about getting the right data extracted in a secure, automated daily process. We then can turn that data through a series of business rules into computed results. And the key is then being able to push those results out into the selected format that you need for submitting to the regulator or central bank. So in many locations, that might just simply be pushing data into specific Excel spreadsheets. In other cases, there might be a specific XML or XBRL format that we need to submit the data in. So really, it's that three-step process: extract the right data, compute the results, push those results into the reporting format. So if we just look inside our regulatory reporting application, what we're seeing here is a snapshot of, in this case, business rules or report selection definitions. So if you imagine on a regulator balance sheet or schedules, every cell is a unique cell. What we would do in Bank BI terms is define each of those target cells as selections that we can define in the application. So the selection ID is a unique key that can link to those cells. And then at that selection level, we can determine what it is that we want to bring in from the source data to map into the regulator's report. So again, if we apply this to a prudential report of the Bank of Zambia, what we would want to do is to link the Bank of Zambia's regulatory chart of accounts to the unique selection codes, and then we would define how we map from the source chart of accounts, i.e. your internal management chart of accounts, how you would map those GL accounts into the right target cells. So firstly, we need to set these selections up. And secondly, we need to then point those selection results to the desired target, in this case, an Excel spreadsheet. So we move on then to what happens then on a daily basis is that every day data is pushed into Bank BI. We would compute a set of results for that reporting date. And then we would simply link the results into the target returns that we need to do for that reporting period or frequency. So in this way, we can support daily reporting, which maybe rolls up into a weekly submitted return. It could be 2 weekly reporting, monthly, quarterly, annually, even to obviously different regulators. So if you are a subsidiary of a bank in another country and you may need to report to head office, there will maybe head office central returns you need to do in conjunction to the local regulator as well. So again, as we compute the numbers for the month, excuse me, all the business rules are clear, all of the audit trail is clear, and then what we're able to do is push the data into the target return for the regulator. So just moving on to how that return gets embedded inside of Bank BI. So the last piece of the process is effectively to take a regulator's return and effectively create a link between the cell in those returns to those unique selections and rules that we've created in Bank BI. So this allows us to make that link between the target report and the computed results. And we're able to load that return one time only as a template within Bank BI. So that template is then used on every reporting date. And the system will calculate the results for that reporting date, make a copy of the template, and embed the results for the return on that particular date. So on a daily basis, we're computing the results, we're pushing the data out through the templates, into the templates. And the advantage of this mechanism is it puts the linking of the data into the target returns entirely into the hands of the finance department in the financial institution. So you would have control as to any changes that are required in any return. You can simply recode the template, link it to a selection that's defined in Bank BI, and upload that template into the Bank BI system. And in that way, independently from us, although we can obviously help you and assist you where required, but it does allow you to have a total independence over not just changes to existing templates, but you could deploy new templates. Those new templates could be regulatory templates for a local jurisdiction, or they could be, as I said, for another jurisdiction, or they could even be management reports you want to deploy just utilizing the data. through that templated mechanism. So what this means is that we're extracting the data every day in an automated way, no manual intervention. We're applying the business rules to that data every day, no manual intervention. We're computing the results for all of those cells. We're pushing all of those results into the end returns. And obviously, the returns have multiple potential files or worksheets. You know, a prudential return may have a balance sheet, an income statement, and then 20, 30 sub-schedules that need to be populated. All of those schedules are being generated and from within the data model that we can compute within BankBI. So what this means is that we can hopefully provide what we consider the sort of ultimate end user experience, that on any given day, you can come into the system, select a reporting date, and then simply select the report that you want, click it. It would open locally in Excel, in this case, on your desktop. And so starting off and living in the cloud application, it would end up as an open, in this case, Prudential report in your local PC using Excel. And that would be the total user experience. Obviously, if you wanted to interrogate those numbers, look at the audit trail, you can use other menu options to do that. If there were valid manual adjustments you needed to pass to any of the numbers, you can do that within the applications as well. There is a full adjustments audit trail that's available to see and track those adjustments. So as we talked about earlier, the complexity of the manual processes you have today, where it's difficult to consolidate data, apply rules consistently, and show any form of audit trail, we've really streamlined that process within BankBI, streamlined the data upload, streamlined the bit of application of business rules, made those business rules visible in the application, allowed you to apply any adjustments, push the results seamlessly into the end returns. And this can really significantly improve the efficiency, integrity, and accuracy of the returns. And of course, we can also reconcile across the returns so that all of the sub-schedules that may be analyzing loans or deposits or any other data do add up back to the main balance sheet that you're submitting. So not only do you get that automation, you can get the comfort that integrity across all of the returns is inbuilt into the process. So let's just move on and talk about some of our customers who've actually deployed this application, just to give you a couple of case studies. As Connor talked about, we have been going over 5 years, actually just over 6 years now, and we have over 60 customers in 40 countries. And this is all run from the UK, and it's a really testament to the power of the cloud and the value proposition that we're bringing to the market. We can consolidate our expertise in the UK. We can provide many, many years of banking experience universally across the world. We can have our key analysts and key specialists working on multiple projects during a working week. And this really leads to a lot of efficiencies and lowers the cost significantly for all of our customers. But we do work as an extension of our finance customers and the finance teams. We do offer our solution on a service annual subscription basis. And so there is continuity in terms of both the implementation as well as the ongoing support of the application. So if we talk about some customers specifically, Sagicor Bank in Jamaica is a large insurance banking group. Over 3 years ago, they consolidated 2 business entities, and as part of that consolidation, they asked us to help automate more than 150 regulatory reports, both for their banking and their securities business. They happen to be a Temenos T24 customer, but again, we're agnostic to where the data come from. So they use InfoSum as their GL system. So the challenge there was getting the right data out, as we talked about, building the business rules, mapping it into all of those regulatory reports, and helping them meet the demanding timelines that they were under from the regulator. In Africa, we've been busy in a number of countries. One in particular is Stanbic in Zambia. Stanbic Zambia is live on our solution for the returns to the Bank of Zambia. They selected us as part of a sort of innovative finance approach to helping or driving innovation in their finance department. And they use us in exactly the way I described, to leverage the data from multiple sources from their core systems. In their case, they use SAP as their GL, and they consolidate that with core banking data, treasury data, and the like. And all of that comes into Bank BI through 11 different data sources, which we consolidate, build the business rules, and automate the regulatory returns, as I talked about. So having done many projects now, we have kind of seen some of the challenges that banks face along the way. So there are obvious challenges around getting the right data, identifying the right data. So we're very, very clear on validating the data as one of the key milestones and one of the key gates we need to get through at the start of a project. If we can't validate the data, tie the data back to source systems and to the financial results of the bank, then it really stops us moving ahead with the project. So it's a really key milestone we need to get past, is the validation of the right data going into the project. But once we've got that data, we've got the efficiencies in the process, what we have found is that banks have had to address that the efficiencies obviously lead to less staff being needed to maybe produce those regulatory returns or central bank reports. So this leads to obviously a change to business processes and the potential to redeploy staff onto maybe doing more valuable work than just consolidating data and trying to meet reporting deadlines. So we do find that that's a discussion we're having more and more upfront in the project to let banks understand what this can lead to and how they should prepare for it. The other challenge that we see along the way is that taking this approach of a data first view of the reporting requirements means at a very early stage we identify gaps or deficiencies in core systems, such as coding attributes at a customer level, maybe something like sector or customer type. If we cannot derive the central bank sector from codes that exist within the core system, then we have a problem. And so this tends to highlight those problems. And what you do about the problems, of course, is then can be subject to much discussion and debate. Many banks are cleansing data and have data cleansing projects underway. This would, in this case, feed in maybe some requirements into that process, and will give you a very good way of very quickly analyzing the completeness of those exercises. I think one of the things we've noticed in banks is, whilst there is data cleansing going on, sometimes it's hard to have a top-down view of when have you finished, when have you actually completed all of that coding. And of course, it's not just a retrospective matter, it's also about changing procedures to ensure, for example, when you open new customers, you capture the right sector going forward. So it can be quite wide and encompassing in terms of across the business process of banks. So that's just a couple of some of the challenges and lessons we've learned along the way, which helps us talk about these things and manage these things with our customers going forward.
That's great, Graham. Thanks very much indeed for that. Well, I thought in this section, just before we wrap up the webinar, just to give you a quick view of what a project with Bank BI would actually look like. So we've got a really well-established project methodology. And in the first step, we review the returns. We do that by, we've also got to identify the frequency of each report, so monthly or quarterly, and then produce the Bank BI mapping. We then need to locate the data. So the good thing is that we know what data we need. So as Graham was saying, as a data first approach. And then we work with you to locate the data in your core banking systems or GL, and then we map that to the returns. And then finally, we make sure that the end users can actually take ownership of those processes, and effectively that ensures trouble-free use of the system. Obviously, you still have our ongoing support throughout the term. So timeline, so how long does a project take? I think in terms of timescale, I've tried to break this down into a 3-month process. So in the first month, and it's effectively during the scoping stage, so we work closely with you to identify the number of reports and then to specify exactly where the data is coming from. So once that's done, we can then produce a fixed fee services estimate alongside the annual SaaS license fee for the system. And SaaS, I mean software as a service. So that's a subscription fee on an annual basis for use of the system. Then in month 2, once you've signed up and we've reached agreement about the moving forwards, then Bank BI will implement and configure the data supplied by the bank, and we produce the fully working reports. So the focus at that stage is on validating and reconciling the data to get to that point. And then finally, in the 3rd month, we move to complete the implementation, conduct the user acceptance testing and the client training, and then finally we execute a parallel run, followed by handing that over to business as usual within the team. So hopefully that's given you a brief snapshot of how we go about the projects and given you an idea now of the applications that we have and the approach with regulatory reporting. So I think now we're able to just move towards the questions and answers session. So if you just bear with me a second, we've had some questions that have been submitted. So Graham, perhaps if I could put this to you. So the first question is, if you have not mapped reports in my country, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because we take a data first approach to the analysis, clearly if we've not already built reports for a particular country, we may be slightly less familiar with those than maybe other countries, but there's a lot of commonality across countries that we've seen over the years. So there's a little bit of extra plumbing that would need to be done to plug the results into those returns for the first time. But we would do that in a way that wouldn't commercially impact or be to the detriment of any individual customers. So we don't want a customer in a country going first to be an impediment to them signing up for the solution. So we would see an element of going first in a country as an investment by us in plugging selections that we need to build to map data into particular returns. And so an element of the project would be undertaken by us on that basis. So it might mean a little bit more time in the project to do that as a one-time exercise, as opposed to inheriting returns we've already analyzed and plugged into the system before. But we don't really see that as offering any sort of conflict or impediment to a bank signing up to the system.
Thanks very much, Graham. So we had another question around frequency of reporting. So perhaps I'd sort of summarize that by saying, can you support all frequencies of reporting?
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we already today have clients that need to accumulate daily data, not necessary to report on a daily basis, but maybe to do a weekly return showing the daily movement in balances across the week. This can be at a balance level in terms of account balances, or it can be at a sort of transactional level in terms of inflows, outflows across accounts. So obviously, if you can do daily, you can do any other frequency thereafter. And obviously, we're looking to automate this process on an overnight daily basis. So when you come into the bank in the morning, ideally, we should have extracted automatically, had that data pushed to us, and had the results returned to the bank on that reporting date. So things that should be data information should be immediately available first thing in the morning.
Thanks very much. And I think we've got time for one question here. Let me have a look. Yeah, do you need to be on site to do projects?
We feel the right blend of remote with on-site achieves the best results. Certainly at the early stages of the project, getting to know the customer, getting to know the data, reconciling and validating that data, it makes sense to do that in a compressed time period, and that makes sense to do it on-site. Generally, that would enable us to flush out any other issues, other data sources, other anomalies that we might need to do. Once we've done that, we would take away effectively a set of financial data. We'd have the internal management accounts of as at certain ended month periods to reconcile to. We take copies of maybe previous months' regulatory returns so that we can try to replicate those. And we would take away and do all of that mapping along the lines that you identified in the scope of the project. Then once we've produced reconciled results, and we have qualified accountants and financial analysts here who can do that level of work, what we're able to then do is bring back on premise a set of results which we can walk through with the bank, conduct training, UAT, and effectively help them go into a parallel run process. So we take away all of the heavy lifting of mapping, building selections, implementing the rules, and then we bring those back and share those with our clients. So this is really, the ultimate software as a service. We like to think we're not just giving you software and license, we're actually building into the whole process a guarantee of delivery and success on the project. And that's why we do this as a fixed fee implementation, because once we have determined the scope and we've validated the source data, we're really backing ourselves to build the rules to transform the data into the right results, and we will have reconciled that along the way. Maybe just say one or two other things while I'm here before we close is firstly, there is always the question of security of putting data in the cloud. Everything we have in the cloud is held securely, is held encrypted, but we also do not have clear text name or customer number even or account number in our database. So if we do need, for example, to have a customer number or name for identifying large exposures or top depositors, we hold that in encrypted format, which means that we give the bank the means to set a password to encrypt the data. And when they click and unveil the Excel return on premise, it would reveal the client locally. We would never know that client's name or the name of the institution. The other thing is that this is software as a service. There is no additional hardware you need to deploy, no servers you need to buy, licenses. It is completely as a service. I think you're going to cover some of that subsequently.
Yes, indeed. So that's great, Graham. Thanks very much for a very full answer. So I think we do have some other questions, but I think we just, in order to respect everybody's time, what I'd like to do is I'll take those questions and provide some written responses to them. We do have, as I started out at the start of the webinar, three quick questions for you to answer. So I'm going to launch those now. So starting with the first question here to you. So are you under pressure to automate your regulatory reporting? And that's yes or no, or it's not, doesn't apply to you. If you could please give me your answer to that. And I'll just give you a couple of seconds there just to collect those responses. Very good. And I'll be sharing all the results of this afterwards with the recording. Now I'm just moving on to the second question. Is the pressure to automate the process coming from within your business or outside of your business? So that could be within your business, might be from the auditors, for example. Outside your business, I guess typically we'd be saying that probably be coming from the central bank or the regulator. It may be both, or perhaps it doesn't apply. Okay, I think we've got the responses to that one. Thank you very much indeed. And then the final question, which I'll just put out there now, is so we can understand if you have an active regulatory reporting project planned in 2020. So the answers would be yes, this year, thought about, but possibly next year, or just not planned. If you wouldn't mind just letting us know what you think of that. Okay, just giving you a couple of minutes here or a couple of moments here to just get your responses in. Perfect. Thank you very much indeed for that. So that concludes the polling sessions. And I think finally, just in order to wrap up the webinar, just to tell you what the next steps are as we see them. So we are able to give you a free, no obligation access to our demo system. So what that will do is just, if you simply want to have a look around the system, get a feel for what the reports look like, be able to navigate through at your own pace and at your own time, and perhaps show your colleagues what the system looks like, then there'll be a link to you after the webinar that will allow you to do that. Alternatively, and for those of you who've perhaps got a project planned for this year, or would like to discuss a project, or would like more of a guided tour of the system, then there'll be the opportunity for you to book a one-to-one introductory session, and then during that we can take you through and answer your more detailed questions and give you a much fuller view of the applications themselves. So I think with that, I'd just like to thank you very much indeed for attending the webinar today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy day. We will be following up, as I said before, with the recordings, and then you'll be able to have all the contact detail to get back in touch with us. So once again, thank you very much from myself, and thank you very much from Graham.
Yes, thank you very much, Connor.